Hello and welcome to the Warcraft Academy guide to Garrosh on normal difficulty. This is for both 10 and 25 man. If you only want a summary of the fight, use the menu at the top to skip to the end, otherwise keep watching. This fight has 3 phases and the fight is easier the faster you complete each phase. In the first phase, Garrosh has very low health, but mobs will be spawning in waves throughout the phase, and they'll spawn faster and faster the longer the phase takes. He'll be spawning Warbringers, 3 from each side of the room, and these will melee whoever aggroes them and cast Hamstring, which does higher damage and slows the target hit. These should be picked up by your off-tank and tanked in melee. These should not be focus AoE'd, just passively cleave them down and continue to DPS Garrosh. He'll also spawn a Farseer Wolf Rider less often. Unlike the Warbringers, these are priority targets and do need to be focused down. They have a powerful chain healing and chain lightning, and both of these must be interrupted. In addition, every time he is interrupted he gains a stacking 25% cast speed increase, so you need to kill him before he gains too many stacks and can't interrupt him. So kill the Wolf Riders as a priority when they're up, cleave down the Warbringers and focus Garrosh. Now other than that there are 2 main abilities in this phase. The first is the Iron Star, which is only used during the first phase. Every 40 seconds a siege engineer will spawn at both ends of the room. After a 15-second cast, if not killed, they'll unleash the Iron Star, which rolls from one side of the room to the other, killing anything in that half of the room. When it finishes rolling, it does an explosion which does more damage the closer you are to it. Each Iron Star covers one half of the room. The engineer on the right unleashes the Iron Star that covers the north side of the room where Garrosh's throne is, and the one on the left covers the south side of the room. There's no point in killing both engineers, so kill the engineer on the right only. This will ensure the north half of the room is never hit by the Iron Star, so you only need to be clear from the south side. 1 player is enough to kill it on 10 man, but you will want 2 on 25. In addition, you'll want to send players who are able to get there quickly or can be there in advance of it spawning. Warlock gateways are very useful for travelling to the edge of the room quickly. Desecrate is an ability Garrosh will have for the entire fight, and when he uses this he throws a weapon at one of your raiders which creates a large void zone around it. The size of the void zone is proportional to the weapon's health, so the more you damage the weapon the smaller it gets. The way you want to handle this throughout the fight is to have 4 raid markers, 1 for your melee and 3 for your ranged. You'll be stacked up on this marker here, and whenever he throws a weapon your range can immediately move to the opposite marker. Once you get there you continue DPSing Garrosh and keep dots up on the weapon. Now with perfect DPS you ideally want to kill the weapon just as he throws the next one. If you're killing it way sooner you're wasting DPS time on Garrosh, and if you kill it late you won't have anywhere to run. So keep dots up on it and then switch to it later if it isn't dying fast enough. Also try to make sure you're stacked properly on the markers. You'll see a few times here our range is slightly too close to the middle, myself included, resulting in a few people taking some extra damage when they run through. Now during the first phase only you also have the Iron Star to worry about, so after you move from the weapon you'll want to make sure you kill the weapon and move back to the red marker before he casts Iron Star, or you'll end up with dead raiders. The boss has extremely low health in this phase so it should only last for a couple of minutes. Once he reaches 10% health he'll do some RP and heal up to full, so when he does reach 10% any additional damage on him is completely pointless. Don't do it. Use the few seconds that you have now to kill all remaining adds and then any weapons that are up. Once he heals back up he has a lot more health and you're in the second phase. The boss will continue to use Desecrate here but also has a few extra abilities. He'll use Whirling Corruption which causes him to spin around and deal damage to everyone in the raid, and the damage is increased the closer you are to him. You don't need to do anything special for this other than heal through it, though using a small cooldown for your melee is a good idea. He'll use Touch of Usage on 2 or 4 random players from time to time, and those players will be mind controlled and attempt to cast Touch of Usage on other players. You need to stun and interrupt these mind controls to prevent them from casting more and DPS them down to 20% health to break the effect. You want to ensure that you're stacked up when Touch of Usage is coming off cooldown, but that should happen naturally with this strategy and positioning anyway. He'll use Gripping Despair on the tank, which is a stacking damage dot. Your off tank should taunt the boss when your main tank is around 3 stacks, and then they can just swap when their debuffs fall off. So he has those 4 abilities and you know how to deal with them. However, there's also an intermission phase. The first happens as soon as you get into phase 2, and then they happen every 3.5 minutes. In the intermission phase you're transported into one of 3 locations. All you have to do is run to the end and kill every mob in the area. You'll need to split your raid evenly into 2 groups, one to go left and one to go right. Every time you kill a mob they drop a little golden orb on the ground, and you can run through these to get a debuff that reduces the damage you take inside. You don't need to do anything special with these, but it doesn't hurt to pick them up. Whilst you're clearing these mobs, Garrosh heals 10% of his health and periodically gains energy. The longer you take to clear, the more energy he gets. Once you clear all the mobs and engage him, he stops gaining energy. He'll continuously cast Annihilate at random sections of the room, which does lethal damage in the targeted segment, and moderate damage to the entire raid. So just move out of the targeted sections, heal through the damage and DPS him until the phase ends. Once you get back outside, immediately move to your assigned positions, all melee on one marker and all ranged on one of the side markers, and be ready for Desecrate and then Mind Controls right after. Now, Garrosh's energy is what makes this phase a DPS race. The more energy he has, the stronger his abilities get. Once he reaches 25 energy, his Whirling Corruption becomes empowered. Whenever he casts Whirling Corruption, he will also fire missiles at your raiders which do damage on impact and spawn tiny minions of your charge. You'll need to move when you see the swirlies appear under you. The adds that spawn need to be killed, however when one dies, any nearby mobs are healed to full and gain 200% increased health and damage. What you need to do is spread out when they spawn and everyone pick their own target and DPS it. You want the mobs to be spread out and killed while standing alone. Anyone with a taunt ability can help move them around and spread them apart. They can easily be tanked by any class, even clothies, as long as they don't have stacks. Whenever one is about to die, don't kill it unless it's completely on its own. If you do end up having one or two with stacks, kill it as a priority and don't try to tank it unless you are a tank. At 50 energy, Touch of your Charge becomes empowered, and this means whenever a player is mind controlled, they are immune to all loss of control effects, so you can't use stuns or disorients. The only thing you can do is use standard interrupts and silences to prevent them casting Touch of your Charge and mind controlling more people. You must interrupt every cast or you will have problems. At 75 energy, Desecrate becomes empowered, which makes desecrated weapons unkillable, so the area of floor they cover will be permanently lost. And at 100 energy, Gripping Despair becomes empowered, and this causes Gripping Despair to explode when it expires and do an explosion to the raid. This explosion puts a debuff on players that increases the damage the explosion does by 10% each stack, and the number of stacks you get is dependent on how many stacks the tank had. So if the tank had 3 stacks of Gripping Despair, the raid will get 3 stacks from the explosion. So the longer you're in phase 2, the more trouble you're in. The only empowered ability you should get in this phase is Empowered Whirling Corruption. If Garrosh is getting to 50 energy, it means you're taking too much time. All you need to do in phase 2 is stack on your marker, move for the weapons, have them killed, spread out and kill the adds at spawn, and DPS and interrupt the mind controls. Once the boss reaches 10% again, he'll transition into his third phase and heal up to 25%. In the third phase, all of his abilities are automatically empowered to full, so you will have to deal with them all. Weapons are unkillable, mind controls are not stunnable, and the explosions will steadily deal more and more damage. In this phase, you want to start with the boss in the centre and your raid on one of the side markers as usual. Whenever he casts a desecrated weapon, both groups will strafe left towards the wall. Don't try to DPS the weapon. For the adds, the easiest way to do it is start with one tank tanking Garrosh, and whenever the adds spawn, that tank will pick up the adds and the off tank will taunt the boss. Do not do any damage to the small adds, and especially do not let any of them die. You will not tank swap after this point. This is the phase where you want to plot Bloodlust and burn him down before things get out of control. There are 3 things that can wipe you in this phase. One is bad DPS, another is failing to interrupt the mind controls, and the third is accidentally killing a small add. So to sum up, in the first phase, focus down Garrosh and the Farseer Wolf Riders. Keep the Wolf Riders interrupted and cleave down the small adds. Have range stacked up on one side and move to the opposite side whenever a weapon is thrown. Keep dots up on the weapon. Kill the Siege Engineer that spawns on the right side and dodge the Rolling Iron Star. In the intermission phase, split your raid into 2 and clear the mobs as fast as possible. Dodge the Annihilate at the end. In phase 2, continue to dodge desecrated weapons, and when players get mind controlled, keep them stunned and interrupted. DPS them down to 20%. When adds spawn, spread out and kill them away from other adds. Tanks taunt off each other at 3 stacks. In the final phase, strafe left whenever a weapon spawns, interrupt and DPS the mind controls, off tank and do not kill all small adds that spawn. Pop Bloodlust and burn the boss down. Do not tank swap after the little add spawn and use all remaining raid cooldowns to defeat him. Thank you very much for watching this guide, and if you have any comments or suggestions, please post them in the comment section below, and remember to visit warcraftacademy.com for all of our other guides for Siege-of-Orgrimmar. If you like this guide, please do subscribe, it really helps me out a lot, I really appreciate it. Thank you and catch you soon.